The restaurant was quiet that evening, the kind of elegant quiet that only money can buy. Crystal glasses clinked softly, violins played in the corner, and waiters glided between tables with rehearsed smiles. At the center of it all sat Eleanor Grant, wife of one of the richest men in New York. Her diamonds shimmered under the chandelier light, but there was something about her, something softer, more real, that didn't quite fit the image of wealth she carried. Across the table from her sat a young man, nervous, sweaty palms, frayed jacket cuffs. His name was Daniel Brooks. He wasn't supposed to be there. That he was a waiter, actually, or he had been, until that very morning when he'd been fired from this same restaurant for being late one too many times. What his manager didn't know was that Daniel's lateness came from helping his sick mother, driving her to chemotherapy, waiting outside the hospital, then rushing back to work. When Eleanor saw him outside earlier that evening, standing in the rain, trying to explain to the guards that he'd left his last paycheck inside, something inside her stirred. She recognized that look, a man trying to stay proud while life tore pieces off him one by one. So she did something strange. She called him over. Invited him to sit down. Ordered dinner for two. Now he sat there, confused, clutching the napkin like it was a lifeline. "Ma'am," he said softly, "I think there's been a mistake. I can't afford." "Relax," she smiled. "Consider this an interview." He blinked. "For what?" "For an opportunity," she said. "My husband runs several companies. We could use someone with your work ethic." But before Daniel could reply, Mr. Grant himself walked in, tall, commanding, the kind of man whose presence shifted the air. He stopped dead when he saw his wife sitting with another man. "Eleanor?" His voice was low, dangerous. "Who is this?" Everyone in the restaurant went still. Daniel stood up immediately. "Sir, this isn't what it looks like." Mr. Grant's eyes flashed. "It looks exactly like what it looks like," he snapped. "My wife having dinner with a stranger." The manager rushed over, pale and trembling. "Sir, please, I'll remove him right now." But before he could, Eleanor's voice cut through the chaos. "Stop," she said. Then she looked straight at her husband, calm, proud, unflinching. "Tell him I'm your wife," she said, turning to the manager, "and that means I decide who deserves a chance in my home, and in my heart." The room froze. Even her husband looked stunned. She turned to Daniel, her eyes softening. "You'll come to my husband's office tomorrow. You'll tell him what you told me about your mother, your job, your fight to stay decent in a world that doesn't reward decency. And he'll listen. Because I said so." Her husband opened his mouth to argue, but the conviction in her tone, that quiet fire, made him pause. It reminded him of who she used to be, long before the money and the status. The next morning, Daniel showed up, nervous but hopeful. Mr. Grant didn't say much, just listened. By the end of the meeting, he handed Daniel a job offer, an entry-level position in his logistics company. Months passed. Daniel worked hard, earned promotions, and slowly rebuilt his life. His mother's health improved with better care. And every Christmas, he sent a handwritten card to the Grants, always signed, "With gratitude, from the man your wife believed in." Years later, at an awards dinner, Daniel stood on stage, now a successful entrepreneur himself, and told the story of that night. "When the world saw me as a failure," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "one woman saw me as human." Her words changed everything. In the front row, Eleanor smiled, older now, but her eyes still bright with that same fire. Her husband reached over and gently took her hand. Because sometimes, kindness doesn't come wrapped in charity or fame. Sometimes, it's as simple and as powerful as choosing to believe in someone when no one else does. And that night, the room fell silent once again, not from shock this time, but from awe. Because everyone knew, they had just heard a story about a moment of humanity that money could never buy. Daniel stepped off the stage to a thunder of applause that seemed to last forever. The ballroom glittered with people in tuxedos and evening gowns, but for him, all the faces blurred, all except one. Eleanor Grant was standing now, clapping slowly, proudly. There were tears in her eyes. Her husband, Richard Grant, stood beside her, not as the cold tycoon he once was, but as a man who had learned something far more valuable than wealth. As Daniel approached their table, Eleanor smiled. You made me cry, Daniel, she said softly. He laughed nervously. I should be the one thanking you. Everything I have today started because you saw me. Richard extended his hand. No, son, he said. Everything you have today started because you earned it. My wife just reminded me to give you the chance you deserved. They shook hands. For a long moment, no one said anything, and then Eleanor broke the silence. Do you remember what I said that night? Daniel nodded. Every word. Good, she said. Then promise me you'll do the same for someone else one day. I already did, Daniel said, smiling. Her name's Lila. She's a single mom I hired last year. She reminds me of where I came from. Eleanor's smile deepened, that knowing, quiet kind of pride that comes from seeing goodness ripple forward. That's how kindness works, she said. It doesn't end. It just changes hands. The orchestra started playing softly in the background, and the three of them sat together, talking like old friends. Around them, laughter and music filled the air, but in that small circle, it felt peaceful, human. Later that night, as Daniel was about to leave, Richard stopped him. One more thing, he said. You were right about what you said on stage about humanity being more valuable than wealth. I forgot that once. But you and my wife reminded me what truly matters. Daniel looked at him, surprised. You really believe that now? Richard smiled faintly. I do. And I've started a foundation in her name, the Eleanor Grant Foundation. It'll help people like you once were hard-working, overlooked, but deserving. Daniel's voice caught. She never told me. She didn't want credit, Richard said. She just wanted hope to keep moving forward. Daniel looked back at Eleanor, now laughing with a group of guests, radiant as ever. She's still changing lives, he whispered. Always will, Richard replied. As Daniel stepped outside, the cool night air met his face. The city lights glowed like scattered stars, and for the first time in a long while, he felt something deeper than success. Peace. He took out his phone and called his mother. Mom, he said quietly, smiling, you remember Mrs. Grant? The woman who helped me years ago? Of course, honey. I pray for her every night. She was at the ceremony tonight, he said. And guess what? She asked me to keep the chain of kindness going. His mother's voice cracked. Then you will, won't you? I already have, Mom, he said. And I'll never stop. He hung up and stood there for a while, watching the city move. Somewhere above, maybe in some invisible place, the universe seemed to whisper the same words Eleanor had said that fateful night.